going to talk about empathy. I like fiddling with things. It's fun. You probably see me fiddling with my fingernails and they ring during my videos. It's probably a stim for me. In fact, it is a stim for me. I feel like crossing my legs. I'm wearing a threadless t-shirt. Hey, Mr. Blue Sky! Yay! So yeah, I'm going to talk about empathy and being super sensitive and picking up on others' emotions and not being able to cope with my own. So I have talked about this in my first video, Autism and Empathy and Emotions, of my first video, but this one's going to be slightly different. And I'll be sharing a poem by one of my friends, so that's cool. I'm very in tune. I know there are other women on the spectrum in some of the groups I'm in, and they talk about being really in tune with their emotions and their own body and other people's emotions and their environment and tensions in the room, and I did talk about that in my video too. I'm very aware. I notice things. I notice, also because I've been diagnosed with sensory processing disorder, I notice when other people get, when they're uncomfortable and when they're feeling left out. Like I always was the kind of person who would reach out to the person who was sitting there on their own and looking forlorn and left out. Like my heart would just be like, oh my goodness, I've got to reach out to that person and connect with them. I would just feel so much empathy and care for that person. All my life I've done, I've been that person, so I know what it's like. And so I would reach out because I knew exactly how that person that was standing there on their own, like student, child, whatever, that was standing there on their own, I knew exactly what it was like. And so I was like, well, I'm going to connect with them and care for, show that I care and help include them, because I know what it's like and I don't want them to feel that way, so I'd care for them so much. I tend to get upset over things that no one else does or no one else notices. Like I can get really emotional and upset about things easily. Like things affect me. Like if I don't watch the news. I will read news articles and just whatever comes up on Facebook, that's how I find out about things. But if it's too much, then I just don't read it. If I'm already overloaded, I can't read it. Like I know that I'll get overloaded and upset about it easily. I'm easily triggered. So because I had a lot of abuse and trauma in my past, in my life, from childhood, from a few adults in my life, not sexual abuse but other abuse, that was quite traumatic. And so I haven't been officially diagnosed with PTSD, but I do definitely relate to the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms, and I'm pretty sure I have PTSD reactions over things, and so I get easily triggered by stuff. And that ties into the empathy thing for me, because something from my past, sometimes it'll be a subconscious thing and I'll be triggered by it, and something from my past will trigger me and I'll get upset about something that's happening in the present, but it'll be like a over-the-top reaction and no one will understand why, and then I feel silly for being so over emotional about something that's not even that bad. And it takes me a while to sort of calm down and balance out a bit. Like I can become very emotionally unhinged over things. This has happened throughout my life. I just get over emotional, and for a long time I felt that was a bad thing, and I felt bad about letting my emotions out. And I don't do that anymore, but I was always told to toughen up, to be strong, and compared to my younger siblings, why, put down in that way. Why are you reacting this way? Why are you so emotional? Your younger siblings, they're not doing that. And that was by my father. And even in stuff in school, I've always felt that my emotional reactions were not valid. And I'm only just learning now that they are, and I have a right to feel the way that I feel. And so I guess that's not really to do with empathy, it's more to do with being super sensitive and emotions and emotional reactions. So for a long time I tried to hide my emotions and pretend like it didn't matter and invalidate my own self, and that was really quite demeaning and upsetting to me. I had no idea. I never used to like to allow myself to feel, so a lot of stuff would come out in my art and my poetry. I can read some of my poetry and stuff in another video blog. I'm just reading more, finding more of my poetry and going, oh my goodness, but I'll have to read it another time. Yeah, so I'm only just starting to allow myself to feel now. My body often, like I talked about in my last video, so back to the empathy and the emotions thing, my body often feels like completely full of emotions, and I feel tight and tense and like I'm, going to explode. I know I won't, but that's how it physically feels, and my eyes, I might be crying a lot or trying not to cry. I'm just this mess emotionally, and I feel like completely discombobulated. It's not fun. I often don't know how to manage my emotions and how to manage myself in that moment. It's really hard when I'm feeling these intense, painful, upsetting, all over the place emotions. I just don't know what to do with myself. I literally just feel completely unhinged and discombobulated and out of kilter, and it's horrible. They are intense. So I have talked about how I cope with that. So I cope with those emotions now. Like I've started saying a thing, I am safe no matter what I'm feeling, and that's really helping. And another thing I'll say is I love myself unconditionally. I love and accept myself unconditionally in this moment, and that helps me. And also I've started telling myself now that this is an intense emotion wave. It will pass. It will, these feelings will not last forever. They will move on, and I will feel a bit more balanced out after a while, and that sort of gives me hope to keep going and to just accept the process of my emotions. But while I'm experiencing them, I'm I'm an extrovert, and I know I am, because I process things externally. I have to express myself through verbal communication, so talking to someone, writing, poetry, art, talking, so all of those things help me to process internally and let it, release what I need to release, and help me to understand in my head what's going on. That's how I process things. That's how I let things go and understand things. So that's an extroverted trait, really. I can very easily, because I'm super sensitive to things, and because I can get triggered easily from my past, I can take things personally, really personally, even if the other person or the situation or anything wasn't even intended to be personal. I can take it personally and get really upset and offended and assume and read into things. And it's not always good. I did that a lot, but now I'm sort of a bit more logical about it and go, hang on, that person's not actually meaning to treat me this way. They probably have no idea that I'm experiencing this reaction. This is more my own reaction, my personal reaction to their behaviour or whatever I've read, or whatever the situation. So I'm learning to just take a step back from myself and go, okay, it's not personal, and just process it in my own way and don't get mad at them necessarily. And and do my little smash box if necessary, do some mindfulness to raise the compassion levels and to stay in the present, do some writing, talk to someone about it in a non-judgmental, safe environment, write about it, art, whatever. Do those things rather than taking it out on the person. That's what I'm trying to learn to do, rather than take everything so personally. I used to be super sensitive. I mean, I still am, but I used to get told when I was a child, stop being so sensitive. Oh, you're so serious. You don't laugh at anything. And I used to take everything so personally. Even I hated the Australian humour. I mean, I am from Australia, but I spent most of my growing up years in New Zealand, and I find the Australian humour really hard. I just get so upset about it. Take it personally. I'm a little bit better at dealing with sarcasm now that I'm learning to be sarcastic about myself and can dish it out, but in the past I used to be about it. So yes, yeah, trivial things upset me. I had to talk about that. Trying to think what else. I did talk about this. Yeah, I've talked about most of this. I'm ahead of myself. Back to my point, yeah, in the past, but the majority of my emotional reactions, people couldn't handle them, misinterpreted them, and told me to stop overreacting, which was really quite incredibly invalidating, and so I took that on, personally, and was invalidating myself a lot. Like I mentioned before, I'm repeating myself, I do it a lot. Repeating myself is a way of processing. I do it with Atris all the time. He gets sick of it. I've talked about that in my marriage positives and negatives video. Having a drink. Oh yes, I'll read my friend's poem. So this is sort of back to the empathy thing now, and picking up on others' situations and absorbing things and just being like a sponge. So my friend wrote this poem. She shared it in one of the women's groups I run on Facebook. She doesn't want me to read her name, so she's just a friend. It's called Empathetic Soul Cleaner. I care, sometimes far too much. I feel too much. Stranger to me, I feel drawn to you, like a moth to the flame, without a thought for the consequences. You do not know that I am a sponge, cleaning away emotional messiness. There is always a price for being nice, for listening. I know that you have something, a feeling that is weighing you down like a stone. You wish to be free to share, but nobody understands or wants to know. Be glad that your circumstances are not worse. Too quickly they retort with demands to harden up, princess or prince. You need to cut the string. Release, please. You beg for release. So you go on weighed down, walking through your work day. I feel your heaviness as you come my way. It weighs me down as I slowly drown in your suffocating negativity. Not knowing even why you bring down my day. You see me there, my eyes look kind. You throw away caution. Eyes furtively dart at me as you say you shouldn't. But you will tell me your woes. A situation where you face each day, feeling bombarded with bullying attacks. Nothing is ever good enough. The job you love so much now fills you with so much dread. You want your old one back. Your wave of negative thoughts and words crash down on me without much warning. I listen, I advise, I ask questions, I clarify, I empathize, all while drowning. I cannot catch my breath, fighting this current dragging me down, trying to give you hope so I can float. Your story is too close to my own. I need to help you, and I do. You thank me and leave, but your weight lifted is still with me. Flattened, I take breaths as the negativity swallows me. This weight that isn't even mine fills my head, makes it spin. I cannot even stand, so I retreat and lay down, completely spent in darkness. I am nothing but breath and heartbeat with your weight, no thoughts until my head clears. The darkness lifts like someone hit reset on my soul, and on I go. So on I go. Sometimes I care too much, too deeply. I would do anything for a friend. I know their lives. I have safe distance with them, no fear of drowning. I know what to expect, but stranger to me, please take a moment. Just think for a moment. Stop me before I drown, trying to rescue you. So that's my friend's poem, and I really relate to that. There are times where people offload things onto me, and I care. I want to show I care. I want to give them hope, because it often looks like they have no hope and have had no one to care, show them care and love and empathy. And I feel like if I can just do one thing to make their day just that little bit better, it'll be good. But you know, it'll help me, and then, you know, sometimes it's too much. You just get overwhelmed and grieve for them. And of course my friend mentions in her poem that it was triggering in a way because it was too close to home for her. So that happens to me. I'll notice things that I want to help people, and it'll be triggering for me too, and I'll get drained. And so it's really hard, you know. I'm trying to sort of work out what is a safe boundary to me, what to take on and what to not take on, because I tend to absorb things, absorb energies, absorb emotions, and see a person in need or a situation and want to help, and I know sometimes it's too much, and then I do, and then I just wear myself out. It's hard to balance it. It's so easy for me to absorb and take on others' emotional energy and problems, and then I end up in shutdown and drained. I like to help others and show I care. It's so easy for me to care too much, and then I end up with nothing. It's difficult to balance the all or nothing. I have actually, as I got a bit older until recently, hardened myself a lot to protect myself, because when I was younger I had a lot of trauma and invalidation, like I mentioned before, so I learnt to hide it and toughen up. But I'm now trying to be more in touch with my feelings and let myself feel and reach out to people where I can. So yeah, it's a little bit about empathy, emotions, and being super sensitive to the world. I hope it's interesting and you find it insightful. I'd love to hear about others' experiences with caring too much and being so sensitive, and empathy and emotions. I talked about a lot of different things: emotions, empathy, and being sensitive. So yeah, quite helpful hopefully, and interesting. Love to hear some feedback. Thank you. Bye.